welcome to the Raj and Drew Show for entrepreneurs. I am here with Raj. How you doing today, Raj?
I am doing awesome. Had a great week last week working with a couple of customers in San Antonio, and it was just a wonderful experience.
Wonderful and hot, I imagine. Is it as hot in San Antonio as it is here in Fort Worth?
Yeah, very, very hot compared to Connecticut. I can tell you that. It was around
Absolutely.
108, 109.
Okay. The big question though, when you're in San Antonio, did you eat some good Mexican food?
Yes, I had some
Okay.
great Mexican food. Yes.
Fantastic. You got to. It's a necessity. Did you go to the Riverwalk at all?
No, it was too hot for us, and I was so busy working with my customer and really taking care of them. They had
That you
16 of their leaders in the room with me for 3 complete days. So I really had to
Wow.
go back, focus on that, take care of them. So that was my top priority.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I now can you can you share, were you doing some of this ego stuff? Were you doing the stages of growth with them, or can you
Yes, it
share any
was
of
a
that?
it
Okay.
was a combination of that. So
Okay.
basically, the high level program is called Ego's Entrepreneur Growth Operating System. And within that, we have what we call the stages of growth built into that.
Okay.
So anytime I have a new client whom I'm working with, this is where we start with. The first thing is we go back and make sure that we bring the whole leadership team to the table for 3 days
Yeah.
because we really want to build the foundational skills for them. So to your question, basically, each one of the 8 leaders
Yeah.
who have been with the company for some time, they go back and answer a series of 5 different mini assessments.
Hmm.
That is the groundwork for stages of growth. Because
Okay.
at any given time for stages of growth, we want to go back and say there are 27 challenges businesses face as they're growing. So we
Hmm.
want to do the survey and identify what are the top 3 to 5 challenges they need to fix. So we go back and the survey results show us that.
Okay.
And the second part of it, if you remember, we talk about the builder and protector ratio.
Yeah.
What is the mindset of the leadership team from growing the business versus protecting the business?
Yeah.
So we do enough, ask them enough questions to see are they in line with which stage they are. And
That's
then
great.
this was a company which was in stage 4. So we did an analysis of stage 2, 3, and 4. Because one
Hmm.
thing about stages of growth is if you miss something in stage 2, it is going to come back and haunt you later on. So you need to fix that, whether you did it or not. Whichever stage you are, you want to go and look at the previous 2 stages. So we did the stage 2, we did the stage 3, we did the stage 4, and we identified 6 major things that were missed between stages 2, 3, and 4. And we
Hmm.
identified and we launched 6 major projects and initiatives for those.
Wow.
And then they went and learned growth as a process. Basically, it was a strategic execution calendar, which we mentioned in one of the episodes previously.
Hmm.
So we started teaching them on that pieces as well. And then all of them went through the dynamic communication. So building up the emotional intelligence, the behavior profile, the driving forces, the competencies, so that everybody in the leadership know each other very well. And they know that they have the right people on the team and the right people in the right seats.
That's so good.
So we accomplished all of those in the last 3 days.
There's so much to this. I mean, we're just talking about the stages and an overview. We've gone through all the prior 6 stages. We're in stage 7 now, visionary stage, 161 to 500 employees. I feel like we've been on a journey, Raj. We haven't built a company through this process, but we've lined out what it takes to grow a company throughout this process, and it's been fun. It's been a great journey, and what's so interesting is there are so many more levels to this. Like you said, there's assessments you can do to figure out if you have the right people in the right spots, which is invaluable to a company, right? If you can help a person understand their best fit in that company and use real data, an assessment that they filled out themselves, right? So um,
Exactly.
it's going to be that's powerful. I can't wait to hear everything that this company experiences through it, and all the growth they experience, more importantly. And hopefully we get some new listeners, right, from that group. I'm sure we're going to have 16 people in the room, 16 new listeners to the podcast, and
Yes.
they're going to get anything they missed in class, they can do the redo by listening to the podcast and understand these stages. So visionary stage, we've got several emotional intelligence competencies, and that's really kind of the combination we've been doing with this series, is not just the stages of growth, but how do these emotional intelligence competencies fit in each stage? Because you have a wonderful handout that gives you an overview of some of the challenges or some of the obstacles that you might be facing and how to attack those, and then also the emotional intelligence that you'll need. And so let me give a brief definition of these competencies, and we'll jump right into some questions. So you'll definitely need emotional self-awareness, and that's recognizing and understanding your own emotions. So you got to know thyself, right? We all understand that. Next, empathy is a big one for this stage. So understanding and sharing the feelings of others. And I was looking at this list today. These might be my 4 favorite competencies on the emotional intelligence 12 competencies, emotional and social intelligence. So you've got self-awareness, so good. Empathy, just foundational for being able to connect with other people. You've got coaching and mentoring, so the ability to support and foster the growth of others. I think if you got that going, which you should have, because we talked about one-on-one meetings in stage 6. So one-on-one meetings, you're starting to build that culture of meeting one-on-one. And if you haven't done it and you got over 160 employees, you got to redo that test. You can't skip it. You got to jump in and you got to build that into the culture. And then finally, inspirational leadership, guiding and motivating others towards a shared vision. I mean, those 4, I love those competencies. I like to think that I'm halfway decent in those. And so this is great. So let's talk about it. So one of the first items that you have under your non-negotiable rules is overhaul the business model to optimize direction, margins and growth, and exit strategy. Those are 3 big things. Let's start with direction, though. What do you mean overhaul the business model in this visionary stage as it relates to direction? What do we need to scrap everything and restart? What are we doing?
So here, Drew, if you notice, what is happening is we have grown from a speedboat to almost like a cruise liner. And when you think of a cruise liner, what do you think? Comfort, cushiony, and it takes time to change and steer.
Yeah.
And when you're a small company and you're going through the phases, the competition is not really paying a lot of attention to you. But when you have 500 employees, the competition is paying a lot of attention to what you're doing and how you are doing. So whatever strategies you had earlier was more internally focused and based on your customers. But now you need to bring in, it is almost like a chess match. You need to go back and take into consideration what the competition will do in response to you. And that is the reason why it is called the visionary, because you really want to take the cruise liner, but still have some of the things like a speedboat.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why it is very, very critical for them, where you need to go back and redesign your business model and say, are my people very comfortable delivering on what we are doing? And is still innovation paying part of what I am doing from a strategy perspective? So innovation becomes very, very critical here. So constantly we need to compete with our competition. So look at what they are doing and how are we changing within that?
Yeah.
And that becomes, go ahead.
Go finish. I apologize.
So basically, if you go back and look at it, right, when you get to this, you have your business model, your profitability, gross margin, all built on your strategy without the competition so far.
Yeah.
But now with the competition, if they start reducing prices, then your business model and your margins go down. Are you able to survive? Are we doing anything from a differentiation perspective? Can we still get the premium pricing, what we are doing, even with the competition breathing our necks?
Yeah.
All of those things is where the business model has to be reviewed, updated, and reformed as required.
Yeah. Well, and you have a track record of data. You have a lot of data at this point, getting up to 160 employees. I mean, that doesn't happen overnight. So you have some data on what has worked, what isn't working. There's lots of information. And if you've been following all the steps, you've been capturing that information, you've been documenting it, you've been making changes. But even more so at this point, and I'm hearing you say you got to be nimble, you got to take that data. And then, I mean, as I look at the percentages on how much time you spent in the visionary role, you're saying 75% of the time you're in visionary mode.
Yes, the entrepreneur has to put on the visionary hat right now. Because what did you notice from stage 5 and stage 6? You have different functions, very, very specialized, where the depth of it is very important. So you have leaders who are managing the teams and functions, and they're very comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So now you are not wearing multiple hats, you're wearing one or two hats. The number one hat is, where do you want to take the company, and setting up a vision for the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And then you're managing your leaders, and the leaders will manage their teams. So those are the only one or two hats you are wearing consistently.
Yeah. That's good. Okay. So you mentioned direction, and then you mentioned the margins and growth as it relates to, you have to be able to understand, like you said, you're on the competition's radar. If they lower their prices, you're going to lose customers theoretically. And you got to know your numbers and know your breaking points on where you have to change. What about exit strategy? So what are we, overhaul business model? And now we're seriously considering offers at this point to exit, maybe determining what would someone have to offer us for us to exit, or what do you mean by that?
So definitely there are quite some entrepreneurs who would love to exit at this stage and cash out. And that is very, very good. So when you go back and look at an exit strategy, what do you want to do? You want to maximize the price you get, right? So your price depends, is a multiple of your EBITDA. Generally in the industry, they go back depending on the industry and what products and services you're doing. It is always a multiple of your EBITDA. That's how the pricing is determined.
Yeah.
The people look at volume, sales volume, but the biggest part of it is how much money are you making?
Yeah.
And that would be there. So you want to have a business model where it maximizes our profitability so that our EBITDA is very high. And based on the EBITDA, you can get more multiples compared to the average company.
Gotcha.
So just to give you an example, in one of the construction industry, the EBITDA is generally around 6 to 7x the EBITDA, the profitability, gross profit.
Okay.
But if you go back and show them above average profits through your business model and effective leadership and working through, there are companies which got multiples of 11 and 12x versus 6 and 7x.
That's a big difference.
And that is what it is. So if I am going for a growth exit strategy, I really want to maximize that and really go back and build a very, very highly profitable business.
Yeah.
So once I have a profitable business and I have a good team who can continue that, then my exit strategy becomes very powerful.
Okay. That's great. Now, this next one, I think we're going to get a lot of pushback on this second area, 161 to 500 employees. And you're saying, I've got to know something about every employee. How is that even possible? I've got people that have right around 100, and I don't think they're doing that. How do we know something about every employee at this stage?
So basically, if you go back and really look at it, you can go and learn about it and know through that through your leaders and managers. So if you are a CEO, you are the entrepreneur, you have between 6 to 8 people reporting to you. So your responsibility is to know your 6 to 8 people very well and one layer below them. So it is not you as a CEO knowing 500 people. But I have one of an extreme example as well. I'll share that in a second. But that way, I know one level below me and then their direct reports. The reason being is this is a stage where we have to go back and develop our future talent. Succession planning is very important. So as a leader, you need to know 2 levels. Then your direct reports will go back and learn the 2 levels below them. Then their level will go back and look at it from 2 levels below them. That is how you spread out and make sure that everybody knows and it's being bubbled up to the top.
Yeah. That's good. I like that. I like that strategy.
So I have one basically, he's an engineering company. They do mechanical, electrical, civil, all this construction, design, and consulting company. And they are over 500 people, but he had 426 or 27 engineers. This was a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And for him, he was a big fan of the trimetrics assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So he went back and all the engineers had their trimetrics assessments. And as soon as an engineer joins, he goes back. He doesn't look at the whole report, but there were like 5 or 6 pages, which are very critical. Their behavior profile, their driving forces profile, their acumen profile, and the competencies. He takes their 7, 8 sheets, put it into a binder, and he spent some time learning about it. The first time
Yeah.
it was a huge effort, but once he gets comfortable, he has all of this in his office. And anytime somebody is coming to meet him, until he gets comfortable, he reviews that. So he
Wow.
really knows their psychometric profile. So he develops outstanding relationship with anybody who comes into his office.
That's fantastic. That's a commitment right there. But I'm sure it makes a huge difference in the organization. You know, it's so easy when you break it down to that. I mean, people really just want to feel valued and feel heard most of the time, you know, on your team. There's so many problems could be overcome. If we talked about it in the last one, had regular one-on-one meetings with people. And if you just put a little bit extra effort in trying to know the people that are helping you build your dream, you know, and helping you build this organization, yes, they get paid. Yes, they're compensated fair, maybe above market, whatever you're doing. But that doesn't mean that they don't still want to feel that what they do matters, right, in the big picture. And we tend to connect that with the people that we work with and how valued or appreciated we feel at work. So that's fantastic. I love that.
Yes, yes. I mean, it is an effort to go back and know every single person,
Yeah,
but that is the reason, or that is the differentiation factor for successful companies versus average companies.
yeah, yeah. Well, and it reminds me of Costco. When I worked at Costco, Jim Sinegal was the CEO, founder, and CEO, and he would go to every single location every year. And there were 400 and something locations at that time. He's since retired. But he would come in and people would, this was just random fellow employees. They'd say, I was here and I met him several years back. He came back the next year. He remembered something about me, whatever it was, you know, there was some sort of small talk and he remembered that thing about the person. And that just made, he was a superhero in their minds, right? Because of that little thing. Now that's a huge thing when you multiply it out by 450 locations. But I guess if you just do it with one person at every location, that message that Jim remembers stuff about you, that message goes out to the entire culture, and everybody goes, wow, this guy's legit. You know, he's a good guy. They paid very well too and had great benefits, which also helps.
Yes.
But it you know, it is, that's what separates the great companies, is those attention to detail.
Yeah. And Drew, I can give you an example from my GE days as well.
Okay.
So basically in the GE days, basically there used to be an award called a Philippi Award, and there were only 32 people who got the award across 330,000 people.
Whoa.
And these 32 people, it doesn't matter which country you are in the globe, you had a chance to come to the headquarters in Fairfield, Connecticut, and have a dinner and a meeting with Jack Welch, who was the CEO then.
Wow.
And I was so impressed because I got there at 5 o'clock, and around 5:30, Jack Welch came in, and he knew so much about me. I didn't even knew, or I'd never thought that he would know. He knew about the project I worked 3 years ago in Illinois and what a difference I made there. He knew about what I have done here in Connecticut on some of the things. He knew about the activities I have done for the community.
Wow.
And I was so surprised that saying, man, oh man, 330,000 people. And he knew all the 32 people, all of their details. And he was
Yeah.
so comfortable talking to us. And from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock, it was an interaction as though that we all knew each other for quite some time.
That's amazing.
So I think that's what great leadership is all about. Great entrepreneurs do. And that
Yeah.
really plays a big role.
Well, and Raj, you got you were one of 32 out of 330,000 employees. I mean, I feel like we should stop and take a clap break for you right there. That you got to be there. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you. I appreciate
amazing.
that. Yes. Yes.
Wow. Well, if anybody was wondering if Raj knows what he's talking about, he knows what he's talking about. Okay, he's got the award somewhere. And so all right. So let's jump back into it. So non-negotiables, you have sell every day. So once again,
Yes.
is that the entrepreneur, the CEO, or are you saying the company has to have a culture of every day we're selling, we're out there making things happen?
So if you go back and look at it, what did we say? We are going to go back and become more like a speedboat, right? So when you want to become a speedboat, you're going to go back and become and behave like an entrepreneur, like a stage one company or a stage two company. And if you look at the number one, stage one and stage two requirement is sell every day. And I want to highlight one example or one thing which I have really learned working with so many companies and seeing them go through the 7 stages is here you want to recruit some of intrapreneurs. We have entrepreneurs as the owners, right?
Yeah.
The intrapreneurs is they have the same behavior profile like an entrepreneur. The only thing they are not comfortable is risk taking and they don't want to take risk with their money or investments.
Yeah.
So these are the people we need to try to recruit them because they're very comfortable. They're doing the same thing what an entrepreneur does, but they're not doing with their money. They're doing with the company's money.
Yeah.
And that is where the speedboat piece comes into picture, and they can work on great initiatives, which they are passionate about. The strategic plan calls for. And they are selling every day to sell those ideas. I mean, I was talking about a company. I just came back from San Antonio, Texas, right? They're stage 4, but there were 3 people who were talking about an initiative very different from what the business is doing. Technically, we do that in stage 7, but one of the things I was suggesting to them and everything else is legally you can be one company or not, it doesn't matter. But from a strategy perspective, I told them we need to come up with a plan so that you behave like a stage 1 company. They were so excited even with a few minutes of the discussion, and we are going back follow through next week and work and help them to be a stage 1 company within the stage 4 company.
Wow.
And that is what we need to develop. And stage 7 will be doing a lot of those things.
Okay. That's great. Well, and I can just see over and over again throughout this, the coaching and mentoring piece, right?
Yes.
You've got to be able to duplicate yourself at this level. There is no way that you can be all things to all people. And so the coaching and mentoring, emotional intelligence has to be in there. You're a visionary. So the inspirational leadership has to be flowing. You have to be able to motivate others toward a common goal and inspire them. So even when we break down kind of the 3 faces of the leader, you've got to be visionary. You're going to do some oversight with your executive team, and then you're a specialist at 5% of the time. That takes self-awareness, because I know someone that I've worked with, and he knows, I mean, maybe he has self-awareness. He doesn't have self-management, but he's up over that 100 employee stage, and he knows that the number one thing holding him back is that he's out there doing the work every single day. He's out there as an individual contributor. Now he answers the phone and he makes decisions and does all that stuff too, but he just can't get away from the hands-on work that's what he loves to do. But ultimately, at some point, you can't maintain both. Am I right? I mean, is that...
I can give you a great example for that.
Okay.
I have a client who are technically stage 6 because they have 160 employees, but they're touching the stage 7, 161, right? They're right on the brink of it. And I have been coaching and working with her for almost 12 months now. And her biggest thing was she's so busy with so many things. So we have to work through and really help her to transform some of the things. And this summer, she did not work more than 30, 35 hours, and she'd spend more time with her children and
Yeah.
still managed everything else.
Wow.
So I had a call less than an hour before our call to now. And that is one of the things she said, Raj, I am so glad we could manage, because she was doing a visionary piece of it, and she delegated and created a great team for herself.
Mm,
And the company is going to be growing much faster than when she was working almost 20 hours.
yeah.
So that is the ideal situation we want. If you go back and look at that, and she becomes the visionary at 75 and did a very good job with stage 5 and 6, developing the leaders, developing the functions, making sure delegating the responsibilities. In stage 7, she can really do that and help the company grow.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, and that's the thing. That's why it's self-awareness is separate from self-management, right? You can know what you
Yes.
should do, but do you do it? You know, and do you do the things that if you say you want your business to grow, which we talked about last week, that might not be
Yes.
your plan. If you don't want
Exactly.
to continue to grow, you want to keep it how it is so you can stay in the role you're in, you like it, great, fine.
Exactly.
But if you want it to continue to grow, you're going to have to manage yourself. And our common mentor, John Maxwell, right? The hardest
Yes.
person to lead is yourself, right? So
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's the
so
reason why a coach or a mentor will play a very big role, Drew.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the next thing is to set up a company-wide leadership succession plan and or system actually. And so that's, I imagine, where we're getting even deeper into that coaching and mentoring, where people really have to activate this so that we can um, develop that next round of leaders, not just for when people move on or when people retire, but when we have this growth and we have to create new layers of leadership within the organization.
Yeah. I mean, basically, one of the things I working with my clients can share a simple formula that works very well. So all my clients, basically, when they go back and look at growth as a process, we
Mm-hmm.
take the month. Some people take July, some people take August as what we call the month of employees. And
Okay.
let me explain what we mean. We go back and review all the employees, and we put them into 3 different categories. One is we call them the top 20. What
Okay.
we mean by that is they are very, very good in their performance, and they have exhibited a lot of leadership potential. So they have the leadership potential and they can execute things. So these
Mm,
are in the top 20% of the people who are my high potentials, who are being groomed to take on bigger roles.
yes.
Then we have the next, which are like the 70% of the population. These people are very good performers, solid, but they really don't have a lot of interest in leadership or anything like that. They're very comfortable being individual contributors or
Yeah.
small teams or things. So we really want, they're very, very important for the business. And we really go back and take care of them and groom them to take on additional responsibilities within the technical field as individual contributors, things like that.
Yeah.
And then you'd have what we call the 10% of the people, for whatever reason, they don't fit into the culture. They're not very comfortable with change. They're not growing with the company or something. And this 10%, we need to come up with an exit strategy. Exit
Mm,
to a different team, different function, or exit strategy out of the company, whatever the right solution is.
yeah.
And that is what I tell succession planning is taking a month of time, really working with looking at and evaluating all of your employees and putting them into different buckets. At
Yeah.
least once a year, it is a very, very good system to work with that. Now you can go back and ensure that for every single role, you have a succession plan.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. I love that. And that from a personality profile standpoint, all those numbers just make sense too. You know, about 70% of the population is steady, right? They
Yes.
fall into that category. And so it makes sense that you have 70% that are like they're coming in, they're steady, they're happy where they're at, and um they don't need change in their life. They're happy as an individual contributor. And so that's cool. Okay, I love that. I love that idea.
Mhm.
Um so this last one, generate, track, and preserve cash. So this is I'm assuming this non-negotiable is has a lot to do with that exit strategy as well, and
Yes.
just being prepared to handle what comes next.
Yeah. I mean, one is for the cash position is something from an exit strategy perspective. But the second thing, remember, when we are 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, it's very easy for us to go back and really take big risks. But when you have 400 employees, 300 employees, you cannot take the same risks.
Yeah.
So you always need to go back and make sure that we are forecasting our cash requirements and forecasting that we can have cash to deliver on those. Because a lot of companies have good profitability margin, but if they don't really plan for cash, they can become bankrupt very easily.
Mm.
So this is where we need to be very, very careful about it, because people don't realize when you're growing, you need cash.
Yeah.
Because growth always takes in cash. So a simple example I always tell people is, let us say your receivable timing is 90 days to 100 days, just as an example. You do the work now, you get paid in the 90 to 100 days.
Mm-hmm.
If my business has grown by 20%, then I need 20% more cash for at least 100 days. And if I do that business, I deliver that, I'm investing all of my money and everything else, but I am not collecting for 100 days.
Yeah.
In those 100 days, if I can't pay my vendors, if I can't pay my employees, then basically I don't have a business to run.
Yeah.
So the cash flow is very, very important. And that's the reason why the planning and the strategic thinking around preserving cash and generating and tracking is very, very critical. Like in GE, one of the example I always talk about GE because that's where I come. If you look at GE power systems, if you look at
Mm-hmm.
GE aircraft engines, I mean, just to go back and design an engine, aircraft engine from start to finish is billions of dollars. $1 to $2 billion to build an engine from scratch and over
Wow.
10 years of time. So where would the cash come from? So you
Yeah.
have GE appliances, GE basically lighting, GE lighting. These are there every day. The Home Depots are buying. The other big retail stores are buying the product and selling it. So there is
Yeah.
always going to flow. So there is always generating cash. So those businesses which are rich cash flow, they go back and support these big businesses.
Yeah.
And when these big businesses go back and look at it, then there's a huge profitability and growth.
Mm.
Because I was involved and I noticed the GE90 engine, how it took them over 12 years to grow and such a big product, because that is the most powerful aircraft engine in the history of aviation.
Whoa.
Now in operation. So it is used on some of the 777s and some 787 Boeings. And I don't know which other aircrafts they are used, but that is the biggest power plant for a plane in the world, in the history of aviation.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. So, gosh, so there's so many reasons why you should generate, track, and preserve cash, and people have their families and they're counting on it, right? You've got that
Exactly,
as the business
exactly.
owner, which at this stage they're probably accustomed to that and they
Mm-hmm.
understand what's at stake. But it's a good reminder that there's just more responsibility at that stage to make sure that you're taking care of everybody. So having empathy, right? At that point,
Exactly.
maybe your achievement orientation wants to run way out there, but you've got to empathize with, hey, I've got these people that they have needs. Let me put myself in their shoes right now. Maybe we shouldn't be this aggressive. Maybe we should really make sure we have everything factored in before we take the plunge on a new initiative.
Yes,
So
very critical.
that's good. That's good. So did we miss anything? Do you want to wrap this up? Put a bow on. I mean, this is it for stages of growth and emotional intelligence. We're gonna kick off a new series in the next episode. What do you want to kind of leave a parting thought with the listeners as it relates to stages of growth or vision or the emotional intelligence?
So I really want to go back and bring a summary to the stage 7 in 2 format. This
Okay.
is where I would recommend, and based on my experience with the clients I have worked with, we call it a dual operating system.
Okay.
So basically, the one operating system is consistently maintaining the speedboat, all the best practices, generating the cash and everything else. But taking 20%, 30% of your effort and behaving like a stage one company, protecting it like a startup, and really pushing that so that your next generation of new products, new services, and growth comes from that.
Yeah.
So I call it the dual operating system, and I'm borrowing this statement from John Carter, who wrote the book on change. And he has something called a dual operating system. So you can take the best practices of an existing business, but incorporate some of the innovation and everything else from stage 1 and 2, combine the two. And so there is certain division within the business that is really growing and really help us to be and see the future of the company.
Yeah. That's cool. I like that. I like that idea. And that's where you're going to find your entrepreneurs, right? They're going to be
Exactly.
very excited about those initiatives and have all kinds of I can't think of the word, discretionary output that they can contribute to that because they're excited about it. That's good.
Yes.
That's awesome. All right. So the dual operating system when you're in stage 7, and for some of your clients, you allow them to do it at stage 4 or 5.
Yes.
And so that's exciting. Well, this has been absolutely a blast going through the stages of growth, talking about the emotional intelligence side of things. I hope all the listeners have enjoyed this. We've got a new series. You'll have to wait. You have to tune in next week to find out what we're going to be talking about. But it's, if Raj is here, it's going to be great. I'll ask some questions and add some commentary from time to time. But I hope you've enjoyed it all. And for that, I'm going to say goodbye and sign off. Raj, it's been a blast tonight, as always. And we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, thank you, Drew. It was a pretty exciting journey. I wish all the people listen to all the 7 episodes and really take advantage of the information shared.